Captain Oliver Bennett had seen his share of strange phenomena during his decade with the Stellar Exploration Corps, but the signal pulsing from Europa 7's surface defied all known classification. It wasn't radio, wasn't light, wasn't any form of electromagnetic radiation his ship's sensors could properly identify. It simply was. "Another sweep, Lieutenant Reed," he ordered, watching as his science officer's fingers danced across the holographic interface. The results remained unchanged, a perfect sphere of energy emanating from somewhere beneath the moon's icy crust. "Sir," Reed's voice carried an edge of concern, "command protocol suggests we report this and wait for reinforcements." Oliver smiled. After serving together for 3 years, Reed should have known better. And by the time reinforcements arrive, whatever's causing this could be gone. "Prep the landing shuttle. We're going to take a closer look." The descent through Europa 7's thin atmosphere was smooth, almost too smooth. As if something was guiding their trajectory, cushioning their approach. They landed half a kilometer from the signal's epicenter, and Oliver led the small expedition team across the frozen landscape. The moon's parent gas giant loomed above them, its swirling storms casting purple-tinged shadows across the ice. They found the entrance exactly where the reading suggested, a perfect archway carved into a glacier, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. Oliver's suit sensors registered the temperature inside as a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius, despite the -180-degree wasteland outside. "This is impossible," Reed muttered. "These readings suggest this structure's been here for at least 50,000 years. "Clearly not impossible," Oliver replied, "since we're looking right at it." He switched to the team frequency. "Martinez, Williams, guard the entrance. Reed, you're with me." The interior was a single vast chamber, its walls lined with the same shifting symbols they'd seen outside. But it was what floated in the center that drew their attention, a crystalline structure the size of a small car, pulsing with an inner light that seemed to respond to their presence. And standing before it, as if she'd been waiting for them, was a woman who couldn't possibly be human. Her skin had a faint silvery sheen, and her eyes, all 3 of them, glowed with an inner fire that matched the crystal's pulsing light. She wore what appeared to be armor, but it moved like liquid metal, rippling with each breath she took. When she spoke, her voice resonated not through the air, but directly in their minds. "You should not have come here, human," she said, her mental voice carrying both authority and ancient weariness. "This place is forbidden to your kind." Oliver took a careful step forward, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "We're explorers, nothing more. I'm Captain Oliver Bennett of the Stellar Exploration Corps. We detected an unusual signal and came to investigate." "I am Valara," she responded, "and I have guarded this relic since before your species first looked to the stars." She moved with liquid grace, positioning herself between them and the crystal. "You will leave now, while you still can." But even as she spoke, something unexpected happened. The crystal's pulsing changed rhythm, its light intensifying. Valara's 3 eyes widened in what looked like shock. She turned to study the crystal, then back to Oliver, her expression a mixture of disbelief and dawning understanding. "Impossible," she whispered, the word echoing in their minds. "After all these millennia." She took a step toward Oliver, her liquid metal armor flowing like quicksilver. "What are you? How can you affect the Nexus this way?" Reed had drawn his sidearm, but Oliver motioned for him to lower it. Something was happening here, something unprecedented. The crystal, the Nexus, as Valara had called it, was now pulsing in perfect synchronization with his heartbeat. "I don't understand," Oliver said. "What's happening?" Valara's expression shifted to something unreadable. "Neither do I, human. But it seems the Nexus has been waiting for you. And now, all our fates may have changed." A low hum began to fill the chamber, and the symbols on the walls started to move more rapidly, as if responding to some unseen command. Oliver felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body, a connection to the crystal that he couldn't explain but couldn't deny. The first contact between humanity and whatever Valara represented wasn't going as anyone might have expected. But as Oliver stood there, watching the ancient artifact respond to his presence, he knew with absolute certainty that the universe was about to change forever. Lieutenant Reed hadn't lowered his weapon entirely, but Valara paid him no attention. Her 3 eyes remained fixed on Oliver, studying him with an intensity that made him feel like she was seeing through to his very atoms. The crystalline nexus continued its synchronized pulsing with his heartbeat, casting shifting patterns of light across the chamber's ancient walls. "In all my years of guardianship," Valara began, her mental voice carrying undertones of wonder and apprehension, "I never truly believed the prophecy would manifest. We thought it merely a story told to comfort those of us chosen for eternal vigilance." "What prophecy?" Oliver asked, fighting the urge to step closer to the nexus. The pull he felt toward it was almost magnetic, but years of training had taught him to be cautious around unknown technologies. Valara gestured, and the liquid metal of her armor flowed to create a seat that rose from the floor. "Sit, Oliver Bennett. The tale I must tell you is as old as the stars themselves, and you'll need your strength for what's to come." After signaling Reed to maintain his position, Oliver accepted the offered seat. As he did, another formed naturally from the floor for Valara. The alien guardian's movements were hypnotic, like watching mercury flow in zero gravity. "My people, the Astrani, were not the first civilization to reach for the stars," she began. "We were merely the first to survive the reaching. Billions of years ago, the beings you would call the predecessors created the Nexus as both a weapon and a tool of creation. With it, they could restructure reality itself, bend the very fabric of space and time to their will." The chamber's symbols began moving in patterns that seemed to illustrate her words, showing astronomical phenomena and cosmic events that defied explanation. Oliver watched, mesmerized, as entire galaxies formed and transformed in the animated glyphs. "But such power comes with a price," Valara continued. "The predecessors' civilizations destroyed themselves again and again, cycling through creation and annihilation. When my people discovered the Nexus, we made a different choice. Instead of using it, we chose to protect it, to ensure it would never again be used to reshape reality on a whim." "Then why am I here?" Oliver asked. "Why does it respond to me?" Valara's expression shifted, her third eye glowing slightly brighter. "The predecessors left a prophecy. They spoke of a time when the universe would need to be reborn, when the very foundations of reality would require restructuring to prevent total cosmic entropy. They said that when that time came, a being would emerge, one whose very essence could harmonize with the Nexus." She stood and approached the pulsing crystal. "We dismissed it as mythology. The mathematics of such a connection seemed impossible. The chances of any species naturally evolving the precise genetic and quantum neural patterns required to interface with the Nexus were incalculable. But here I am," Oliver said softly, feeling the crystal's resonance deep in his bones. "Here you are," Valara agreed. "Though I suspect there is nothing natural about your evolution at all. The predecessors were known to experiment, to seed potential throughout the cosmos. Your species may carry their mark, their intentional design, without ever knowing it." Reed stepped forward. "Captain, are we really entertaining this? It sounds like religious nonsense, not science." "Does it, Lieutenant?" Valara's mental voice carried a trace of amusement. "Your own scientists theorize about quantum consciousness, about the universe itself being a form of computation. Is it so hard to believe that consciousness could be engineered to interface with the very codes of reality?" Before Reed could respond, alarms blared from their suit computers. Martinez's voice crackled over the comm, "Captain. We've got multiple ships dropping out of FTL in high orbit. Energy signatures don't match any known configuration." Oliver stood quickly. "How many?" "At least 7, sir. And they're launching landing craft." Valara's armor rippled with patterns of agitation. "They've found us. The signal of your compatibility with the Nexus must have echoed across local spacetime. She turned to Oliver, her expression grave. Captain Bennett, you have a choice to make, and quickly. Those ships belong to those who would use the Nexus without understanding or care for the consequences. If you leave now, you might survive. If you stay. If I stay. If you stay, you commit yourself to a path that will change everything, your life, your understanding of reality, perhaps reality itself. And you will be hunted across every star system by those who would kill you to claim this power for themselves. The chamber trembled as the first explosions reached the surface above. Oliver looked at the Nexus, still pulsing in time with his heart, then at Reed, who waited for his orders. Finally, he turned to Valara. I didn't come this far to run away from the truth, he said. Whatever this is, whatever I am, I need to understand it. Valara's expression might have been a smile. Then we must move quickly. The next few moments will determine not just our fate, but the fate of all reality. The escape from Europa 7 was chaos incarnate. Oliver's training had never covered fleeing from unknown alien vessels while protecting an ancient reality-warping artifact, but improvisation had always been one of his strengths. With Reed coordinating from their shuttle and Martinez providing covering fire, they'd managed to get the Nexus out of the chamber, though "get" wasn't quite the right word. At Valara's touch, the massive crystal had shrunk to the size of a basketball, its pulsing light now a subtle gleam. My ship's not far, Oliver said as they raced across the icy surface, energy beams from the pursuing crafts cutting through the thin atmosphere around them. We can. Your vessel is already compromised, Valara interrupted, her mental voice tight with concentration. The Shriven, those who hunt us, they are efficient. They will have planted quantum resonance bombs throughout your ship's systems. As if to confirm her words, Oliver's ship erupted in a spectacular explosion that lit up the moon's dark side like a second sun. The blast wave knocked them off their feet, sending them sliding across the ice. Options? Oliver grunted, helping Reed to his feet while Martinez laid down another barrage of covering fire. Valara's liquid metal armor rippled, extending to create a protective barrier around their group. I have a vessel. Hidden. But reaching it will require trust. She turned her 3 eyes to Oliver. Complete trust. Oliver looked at his team, then at the approaching enemy ships. Whatever you're going to do it fast. The alien guardian nodded, then pressed her hand to the ice beneath them. The surface suddenly became liquid, and they plunged into the moon's subsurface ocean. Before panic could set in, Oliver realized they were encased in bubbles of Valara's liquid metal, which somehow maintained their atmosphere and protected them from the crushing pressure. They shot through the dark waters like torpedoes, guided by Valara's will. Through the translucent metal, Oliver caught glimpses of bioluminescent life forms and vast structures that looked more grown than built. Finally, they emerged into a massive underwater cavern where a ship waited, though "ship" seemed an inadequate word for the organic-looking vessel that pulsed with its own inner light. Minutes later, they were breaking through Europa 7's ice shell and accelerating into space. The pursuing ships fired, but their weapons seemed to pass right through Valara's vessel as if it existed in a slightly different phase of reality. Dimensional shifting, she explained as she guided them past Jupiter's magnetic field. My ship exists in multiple states simultaneously. They cannot hit what they cannot fully perceive. That's. Reed began. Impossible. Oliver finished with a slight smile. I think we need to revise our definition of that word. The next 3 weeks were a crash course in advanced physics, alien culture, and survival. They jumped between star systems using methods that made traditional FTL travel look primitive, always staying one step ahead of the Shriven. Valara's ship, which she called the Moirai, seemed to respond to thought itself, its interior reconfiguring to meet their needs. During the quiet moments between jumps, Valara taught Oliver about the Nexus. The crystal's connection to him was growing stronger, and sometimes he would wake from dreams where he could see the underlying mathematical structure of the universe itself. The Shriven were once like my people, Valara explained one cycle as they watched a binary star system through the ship's translucent hull. But they chose a different path. They believe the Nexus should be used to enforce order on the cosmos, to eliminate what they see as the chaos of free will. And what do you believe? Oliver asked, watching as the Nexus pulsed in synchronization not just with his heartbeat now, but with his breathing and brainwaves. I believe the universe requires both order and chaos to survive. Perfect order is death, an entropy of the soul. She turned her three eyes to him. But more importantly, I believe the predecessors were right. The cosmos is approaching a critical point, a moment when reality itself must either evolve or begin to unravel. That is why you are here, why you were created across eons of guided evolution. Martinez, who had been maintaining their weapon systems, joined them. Multiple ships dropping out of dimensional shift, Guardian. The Shriven are adapting to our tactics. Valara's expression hardened. They are learning faster than expected. We cannot run forever. Then maybe it's time we stop running, Oliver said, standing. The Nexus flared brighter at his words. Maybe it's time we understand exactly what I was created to do. Reed looked up from his sensor station. Captain, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? The Nexus responded to me for a reason, Oliver said. And I'm tired of being hunted across the galaxy without knowing why. Valara, you've been teaching me about its power. I think it's time for a practical lesson. The alien guardian studied him for a long moment, all three eyes glowing with different intensities. Such an attempt would be dangerous. The power could overwhelm you, destroy you, or worse. Worse than letting the Shriven catch us. Worse than letting them use the Nexus to enforce their version of perfect order across all reality. The ship shuddered as the first enemy weapon's fire connected, the dimensional shifting no longer providing perfect protection. Valara's liquid metal armor rippled with patterns Oliver had learned to recognize as deep thought. Very well, she said finally. But if we do this, we do it correctly. There is a place, a nexus point in space-time where the barriers between dimensional states are naturally thin. If you are to attempt interfacing with the nexus fully, that is where it must happen. How far? Oliver asked as another blast rocked the ship. At our best speed? 3 days. She paused. If we survive that long. Oliver looked at his crew, Reed, Martinez, and the others who had followed him into this impossible situation. They all nodded. Then he turned back to Valara, his decision made. Plot the course. It's time we find out what reality has in store for us. The coordinates Valara had given them led to a place where space itself seemed to fold inward. The Moirai drifted in the shadow of a quantum filament, a cosmic string left over from the birth of the universe. Here, reality was thin, malleable, and the nexus pulsed with an intensity that made Oliver's entire body hum in resonance. They had lost 2 pursuit ships in the Carina Nebula, destroyed 3 more in the gravity well of a collapsed star, but still the Shriven came. Their determination spoke of something more than mere desire for power, it spoke of desperation. You're troubled, Valara observed, finding Oliver in the ship's observation chamber. The quantum filament stretched across the view like a crack in space itself, its light defying normal physics. 3 days of study, of preparation, and I still feel like we're missing something. Oliver turned to face her. The Shriven, they're not just trying to stop us, are they? They're trying to prevent something specific. Valara's 3 eyes dimmed slightly, a sign Oliver had learned meant she was wrestling with a difficult truth. It is time, she said finally, her mental voice heavy with the weight of millennia. Time you understood everything. The liquid metal of her armor flowed, creating a sphere around them that displayed images of ancient history, stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, and through it all, the subtle manipulation of life itself. The predecessors didn't just guide human evolution, she explained. They created the Astrani, the Shriven, and 1,000 other species across the cosmos. Each was designed to fulfill a specific purpose in their grand design. Which was what? Oliver asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Reality itself is dying, Valara said simply. Not quickly, not in any way your scientists could measure yet. But the fundamental forces that bind existence together are slowly degrading. The predecessors saw this coming billions of years ago. They created the Nexus as a tool to rewrite the basic laws of physics, to give reality itself a new foundation. The images around them shifted, showing mathematical equations of impossible complexity. But such power could not be wielded carelessly. One mistake could unravel everything. So they created my people to guard it, the Shriven to test those who might claim it, and humanity. To use it, Oliver finished. The Nexus flared in response to his understanding, its light synchronizing not just with his body now, but with his very thoughts. Yes. But not humanity as a whole. Your species was seeded with specific genetic markers, quantum patterns in your neural architecture that would, over millions of years of guided evolution, produce one individual capable of interfacing with the Nexus safely. You, Oliver Bennett, are the culmination of billions of years of careful design. Reed, who had entered silently during their conversation, spoke up. That's why the Shriven are so desperate. They're not trying to steal the Nexus, they're trying to prevent its use entirely. Correct, Valara confirmed. The Shriven believe that reality should be allowed to die, that from its natural death something new and perfect will emerge. They see themselves as servants of entropy, midwives to a new cosmic order. Oliver stared at the quantum filament through the ship's hull. And if they're right? What if using the Nexus to rewrite reality makes things worse? That, said a new voice, is precisely the question we have waited eons to hear. They turned to find a figure standing in the chamber's entrance, a being that seemed to be made of pure light given shape. Its form shifted between humanoid and something far more complex, as if three-dimensional space could barely contain its true nature. Valara dropped to one knee immediately. Predecessor, she whispered. The being's attention focused on Oliver. We have watched you, child of our design. Watched as you questioned, doubted, sought to understand rather than simply act. That, more than any genetic marker or quantum resonance, is why you are truly ready. Ready for what? Oliver asked, feeling the Nexus pulse in perfect harmony with his entire being. Ready to make a choice, the predecessor said. Not between using the Nexus and destroying it, but between different forms of new reality. The power was never meant to be wielded by one who was certain, but by one who understood the weight of uncertainty. Before Oliver could respond, the ship's alarms blared. Martinez's voice came through the comm, massive Shriven fleet incoming. They've surrounded the quantum filament. The predecessor's form flickered. They sense that the moment has come. You must decide quickly, Oliver Bennett. Reality's death spiral has begun. Even now, fundamental forces begin to decouple across the cosmos. The universe requires renewal, but the form that renewal takes, that is your choice to make. The ship shuddered under the first wave of enemy fire. This time, there would be no escape. Oliver looked at the Nexus, at Valara, at his crew, and at the being of light that had helped shape his entire species. Show me, he said finally. Show me everything I need to understand to make this choice. The predecessor moved forward, its light merging with the Nexus's glow. Remember, it said as knowledge began to flow into Oliver's mind, the power to reshape reality means nothing without the wisdom to shape it well. Knowledge burned through Oliver's mind like starfire, the fundamental mathematics of reality, the quantum choreography of existence itself, the delicate balance of forces that held the cosmos together. He saw the slow death spiral of the universe, the gradual unwinding of physical laws that would, over billions of years, lead to the heat death of everything. But he also saw possibilities, paths of renewal that branched like lightning through his consciousness. The Shriven fleet surrounded them in a sphere of sleek, predatory vessels, their weapons charged with enough power to tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. At their center, the Moirai hung suspended near the quantum filament, its dimensional shifting overtaxed and failing. "Their commander is requesting communication," Martinez reported from his station. Oliver nodded, still processing the vast download of information from the predecessor, who now stood like a being of pure light beside the pulsing nexus. "Put them through." A figure appeared in their chamber, a holographic representation of a being that looked like a twisted mirror of the Lara species. Where her form was fluid and harmonious, the shriven commander was all sharp angles and crystalline perfection. "Inheritor," the commander's voice rang in their minds, cold and precise as mathematics. "You understand now why this cannot be allowed. Reality must be permitted its natural death. From entropy's perfect silence, a new existence will emerge, one free from the chaos of free will, from the poison of uncertainty." "I understand more than you know," Oliver replied, feeling the nexus synchronize even more deeply with his consciousness. "I see the pattern you dream of, the crystalline perfection of absolute order. But I also see its flaw." The commander's form flickered with irritation. "There is no flaw in perfection." "Perfection is the flaw," the Lara interjected, her armor rippling with emotion. "A universe without chaos is a universe without growth, without evolution, without life itself." The predecessor's light pulsed in agreement. "This is the choice that has always waited, Oliver Bennett. Not between existence and non-existence, but between different forms of renewal. The Shriven's path of perfect order, or something else." The enemy fleet's weapons powered up, their energy signatures setting the quantum sensors wild. "Choose quickly, Inheritor," the commander warned. "Choose to stand down, or we will unmake this entire sector of space to stop you." Oliver closed his eyes, feeling the Nexus's power flow through him. He saw the paths before him with perfect clarity, the Shriven's crystalline future, beautiful but sterile, the continuation of the current universe's slow death, or... His eyes snapped open. "There's another way," he said. The predecessors knew it, but they couldn't implement it themselves. They needed someone who could understand both order and chaos, who could walk the line between. "Warning shots incoming," Martinez called out as beams of energy sliced past the Moirai's hull. Oliver stepped forward, placing his hand on the Nexus. Its light had become almost blinding, perfectly synchronized with his entire being. "The universe doesn't need to be rewritten," he said. "It needs to be taught to write itself." Power surged through him as understanding became action. The quantum filament behind them began to pulse in harmony with the Nexus, creating a cascade of resonance through spacetime itself. Oliver felt his consciousness expand, touching the very fabric of reality. "Stop him," the Shriven commander ordered, and the fleet opened fire with everything they had. But they were too late. Through Oliver, the Nexus reached out to the fundamental forces of the cosmos. Not to rewrite them, but to evolve them. Like teaching a child to adapt rather than forcing it to change, he began to work with the universe itself, showing it how to grow, how to renew, how to find balance between order and chaos. The Shriven's weapons fired dissolved into pure energy as local spacetime redistributed their attack across billions of light-years. The quantum filament blazed with new purpose, becoming a seed point for reality's evolution. "What have you done?" the commander demanded, their hologram flickering wildly. "Given the universe back to itself," Oliver answered, his voice resonating with newfound power and understanding. "Not perfect order, not pure chaos, but the strength to find its own way forward." The predecessor's light merged with the cascading changes. "Yes," it said. "This is what we hoped for. Not a savior to fix reality, but a teacher to show it how to save itself." Around them, space itself began to shimmer with new possibility. The fundamental forces weren't being rewritten, they were learning to adapt, to evolve, to grow stronger. Through the ship's sensors, they watched as the effect spread at superluminal speeds, a wave of renewal washing through the cosmos. The Shriven fleet hung motionless, their perfect order confronted by something they had never considered, the possibility of guided evolution rather than imposed change. Velara stepped forward to stand beside Oliver, her 3 eyes glowing with wonder. "You chose to trust the universe itself," she said softly. "In all our eons of guardianship, we never considered that option." Oliver nodded, feeling the changes ripple through existence. Sometimes the best way to protect something isn't to control it or destroy it, but to help it grow strong enough to protect itself. The Nexus's light began to fade, its purpose fulfilled. The predecessor's form grew dimmer as well, its work finally complete. "The age of guardianship is over," it said. "The age of growth begins." As the quantum filament pulsed with new life, as reality itself learned to adapt and evolve, Oliver looked out at the stars. They seemed brighter somehow, alive with possibility. The universe would face challenges ahead, but now it had the tools to face them, to grow, to become more than its creators had ever imagined. "So," Reed asked, breaking the profound silence that had fallen over the chamber, "what do we do now?" Oliver smiled, feeling the echo of the Nexus's power still resonating through his changed consciousness. Now we explore. After all, we have a whole new universe to discover." The Morai's engines hummed to life, and beyond its hull, reality itself pulsed with newfound vitality. The adventure, it seemed, was just beginning.